Amanda's hands were shaking by the time the black iron gates came into view. Not from fear. From decision. She had practiced the words 17 times in the cab ride over. She had even written them down on a notepad and then ripped the paper into pieces because seeing them in ink made her chest hurt too much. But she knew what she had to say. She had known for 3 weeks, ever since the night she found the bullet casing on the floor of his coat pocket when she went to hang it up for him. He had laughed it off. She had not laughed. She smoothed the front of her coat. She lifted her chin. She pressed the intercom outside the towering gates of Eugene's Seoul mansion and told herself that whatever she felt for him, whatever that complicated, electric, terrifying thing was that she had been calling love for the past 8 months, it was not stronger than her survival instinct. The gate swung open. She walked up the stone path, rehearsing her first line, and the front door opened before she even reached the steps. She pulled in a breath and opened her mouth. And then something small and fast crashed into her knees. 2 tiny arms wrapped around her legs. A head of jet black hair pressed against her thigh. And a voice, high and clear and completely certain, said the one word Amanda had never in her life been prepared to hear from a child she had never met. Mom? The world stopped. Amanda looked down. A little girl no older than 5, was squeezing her legs like she was afraid Amanda might dissolve into thin air. She was wearing yellow pajamas with cartoon bears on them. Her hair was in 2 uneven pigtails, the kind a man ties when he is trying his best and failing adorably. She smelled like children's shampoo and sleep. Amanda looked up. Eugene was standing in the doorway of the mansion, still as stone, in a dark shirt with the top 2 buttons undone. He was the most powerful, most dangerous, most controlled man she had ever known in her life. He looked absolutely terrified. Amanda? Who, she said, and her voice came out dangerously quiet, is this child? The little girl looked up at her with enormous brown eyes, still holding on, still smiling, like Amanda's presence on this doorstep was the most natural thing in the world. Like she had been waiting. You're prettier than your pictures, the girl said. Amanda's breakup speech evaporated completely. Before we go any further, drop a comment right now and tell me where in the world you are watching this from. I want to see every single location in that comment section. Now, back to Amanda standing at that door holding a breakup speech in her head and a little girl wrapped around her knees, because things are about to get so much more complicated. Amanda did not go inside immediately. She stood on that doorstep for a full 5 seconds, which does not sound like a long time until you are standing at the door of a Korean Mafia boss's mansion with a child you have never met clinging to your legs and calling you a name you have not earned. Then her body just moved. Because the child was warm and small and clearly overjoyed, and Amanda had been raised by a grandmother who told her that a child's joy is sacred, and you do not walk away from sacred things even when you are confused. She walked in. The inside of the mansion was exactly what she remembered. Precise. Expensive. Cold in the way that rooms are cold when they have been decorated by money and not by living. Marble floors. Art on the walls that probably cost more than her entire apartment building back in Atlanta. A staircase that curved upward like it was showing off. The little girl pulled her toward the living room by 2 fingers, chatting the entire way about a drawing she had made at the table, about how she had been waiting all day, about how she had told Appa that Amanda was going to love the drawing because it had butterflies and Amanda looked like someone who liked butterflies, which was a specific and surprising assessment from a 5-year-old. Amanda sat on the couch because her legs told her to. Eugene stood across from her, and she watched his jaw work the way it did when he was trying to choose words carefully. She had seen that jaw working twice before. Once when he told her his business was complicated. Once when he told her the men following them on the street were nobody to worry about. Both times he had been lying. Her name is Sujin, he said. I can see that she is a person with a name, Amanda said. What I cannot see is why she exists in your house and why I am only learning about her right now after 8 months. Sujin was at the coffee table, presenting the butterfly drawing with tremendous ceremony. It was actually a very good drawing for a 5-year-old. Amanda accepted it with both hands the way her grandmother had taught her to receive any gift. She is my daughter, Eugene said. There it was. Amanda placed the drawing down carefully on the cushion beside her. She breathed in through her nose. She looked at him and thought about 8 months. 8 months of careful, guarded, breathtaking connection. 8 months of learning that underneath all that terrifying control was a man who was genuinely tender, who remembered every small thing she ever mentioned, who had once driven 40 minutes across Seoul at midnight because she mentioned offhand that she was craving a specific type of rice cake. 8 months of him not telling her he had a daughter. How long has she been here? Amanda asked. 3 weeks. Where was she before? With her mother. And her mother is? He paused. Someone from before you. Amanda stood up. Appa, Sujin said, not looking up from her drawing, you're doing the quiet thing again. Hannah says the quiet thing means you're scared. Who is Hannah? Amanda asked, momentarily derailed. My sister, Eugene said, with the specific exhaustion of a man whose sister had apparently been commentating on his emotional state to a 5-year-old. Amanda pressed her fingers to her temple. She looked at Sujin. She looked at Eugene. She thought, with remarkable clarity, that this was not how this evening was supposed to go. I need a minute, she said. Outside. But here is where it gets interesting. Because Eugene followed her, and what he said next was not an excuse. It was not a carefully constructed defense. He stood on the stone steps of his mansion in the sole evening air and he told her the truth, and the truth was somehow worse and better than anything she had imagined. He had known about Sujin since before Amanda. He had been supporting the child financially. The mother, her name was Jiyeon, had sole custody and had kept Sujin overseas in Japan, for reasons Eugene described with a flatness that told Amanda those reasons were complicated and painful. 3 weeks ago Jiyeon had arrived at his gate, placed Sujin's hand in his, said she needed time and left. She just left her? Amanda asked. She is not a bad person, Eugene said, and he said it in a way that told Amanda he had forgiven someone for something very difficult. She is someone who needed to not be a mother for a while. I am not going to explain that to you as a failure. Amanda absorbed that. But you didn't tell me, she said. For 3 weeks she's been in this house and you did not tell me. I was afraid. Of what? He looked at her, and for the first time since she had known him, Eugene looked every bit as vulnerable as a person could look. Not the careful, chosen vulnerability he sometimes allowed. The real kind. The kind that comes out when you have run out of ways to protect yourself. I was afraid you would leave, he said. And I was afraid I would deserve it. Amanda opened her mouth. And then Sujin appeared in the doorway behind him in her cartoon bear pajamas, holding the butterfly drawing out toward Amanda with both hands. You forgot it, Sujin said very seriously. Amanda took the drawing. She folded it and put it in her coat pocket. And she did not leave that night, even though she had come here to do exactly that. She stayed for dinner. She was not sure how that happened. One moment she was standing on the steps making decisions, and the next moment Sujin was asking if she knew how to use chopsticks, and Amanda, who absolutely knew how to use chopsticks because she had spent 6 months learning Korean food culture before she even moved to Seoul, said yes, and Sujin looked genuinely thrilled, and somehow that was the moment the evening pivoted. Dinner was quiet and strange and oddly warm. Eugene cooked, which she had not known he could do. He was careful and competent in the kitchen in the same way he was careful and competent in every room he entered, and watching him cut vegetables with that same focused expression he wore in every other context of his life made something in Amanda's chest do a complicated thing she refused to examine. She sat at the counter and watched him, and she thought about all the versions of him she had been building in her head over 8 months. The dangerous one. The controlled one. The one who sent flowers without a note because he said flowers explain themselves. And now this one in a kitchen, trying to make dinner good enough for a 5-year-old who had opinions about salt content. This was the most frightening version. Not because it was threatening. Because it was real. Because it was the version that made the others make sense. Sujin talked enough for all 3 of them. She had opinions about everything. She preferred the window seat to the regular seat. She thought the fish needed more salt. She wanted to know if Amanda had any brothers or sisters, and when Amanda said no, Sujin said, me neither, but maybe soon, in the tone of someone announcing a reasonable plan, and Eugene set his chopsticks down and looked at the ceiling. Amanda left after dinner. She kissed Sujin on the top of her head without planning to, because the child tilted her face up expectantly and it would have been rude not to. She told Eugene she needed to think. He nodded and did not push, which was the right thing to do, and she hated a little that he knew it was the right thing to do. She was in the cab halfway back to her apartment when her phone buzzed. It was not a number she recognized. She opened the message. It read, "Stay away from my daughter." Amanda stared at the screen for a long time. The Seoul streets blurred past the cab window, all neon and motion. She read the message again. Her first thought was that it was Jiyeon. Her second thought was that Jiyeon apparently knew exactly who she was and exactly where her phone number was. Her third thought, arriving quieter and colder than the first 2, was that a woman who left her child with a Mafia boss and sent threatening texts from unknown numbers was not a woman who was simply taking a break from motherhood. Something was wrong. She did not know yet how wrong. If you're enjoying this story so far, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button right now. We put out stories like this every single week and you do not want to miss what is coming next. Like this video too because the algorithm needs to know this story deserves to be seen. Now, back to Amanda because her night is about to get significantly worse. She called her best friend Kezia from the cab. Kezia had been Amanda's closest friend since their undergraduate years, had followed her to Seoul on what she called a solidarity adventure and also because the skincare is unbelievable, and was the only person in Amanda's life who knew the full truth about Eugene. Kez, Amanda said the moment Kezia picked up. "Oh no," Kezia said immediately. "I know that voice. That's your, something has happened that defies rational explanation voice. What happened? Did he do something terrible? Do I need to come over?" I was already in my bonnet. "He has a daughter," Amanda said. Silence. "Come again. A 5-year-old daughter. Who was at the mansion when I arrived. Who called me mom." More silence. Then, "I'm coming over. You don't have to. I'm already putting on shoes. You should see how fast I'm putting on shoes. Amanda, I'm breaking a personal record right now." Kezia arrived at the apartment 20 minutes later with her bonnet slightly askew and a container of leftover jollof rice because she said no emotional crisis should be processed on an empty stomach. She sat on Amanda's bed and listened to the entire story, from the gates to the butterfly drawing to the threatening text, without interrupting once, which was extraordinary because Kezia was not a woman who withheld reactions. When Amanda finished, Kezia said, "Show me the text." Amanda handed her the phone. Kezia read it. Her expression did something complicated. "This isn't a mother being protective," she said. "I know. This is a threat. I know. Amanda, you came here to break up with him. You went there tonight to end it. And now you're sitting here with a butterfly drawing in your coat pocket and a threat on your phone and you've got that face. What face? The face you had sophomore year when you said you were going to drop Marcus and then spent 45 minutes explaining why he wasn't actually that bad. That is not what this is. Isn't it?" Amanda pulled the butterfly drawing out of her pocket. She looked at it. Sujin had drawn 3 figures standing together under the butterflies. A tall one. A slightly shorter one. A small one in the middle holding both their hands. "She drew this before she even met me," Amanda said. Kezia looked at the drawing. Her expression went through several things in quick succession, ending somewhere soft. "Oh," she said. "Yeah," Amanda said. "That child is diabolical," Kezia said with great fondness. "She did this on purpose. She's 5. 5-year-olds are the most powerful people on earth and you know it." Amanda almost smiled, which she hadn't done in hours, which she hadn't realized until the moment she almost did it. She put the drawing down. "I'll deal with the text tomorrow," she said. "Tonight I just need to sleep." She did not sleep. She lay in the dark and thought about bullet casings and threatening messages and a little girl in bare pajamas who had built an entire fantasy family portrait from photographs she had never been in. She thought about Eugene standing on those steps looking like a man who was finally too tired to be armored. She thought about the way Sujin had handed her that drawing with both hands, because someone had taught her that you give important things with both hands. By 3 in the morning, she had made her decision. She was going to end it. Tomorrow properly. Cleanly. Before she got any deeper into something she could not survive. She had made this exact decision 17 times in the cab on the way to his mansion. She knew how well that had gone. The next morning she called Eugene. He answered on the first ring, which he always did, which she had once thought was charming and now thought was the kind of thing that made walking away very difficult. "I need to see you tonight," she said. "Alone. At my apartment." "All right," he said, and his voice was carefully neutral, which meant he understood exactly what this call was. That evening, while she was preparing what she was going to say, her phone rang. An unknown number. Different from last night's. She answered it without thinking. Dead silence on the line. Then a woman's voice, low and tightly controlled. "You think you know him. You don't. Get out before it's too late. I'm warning you because I know what it's like to be where you are standing. There is no version of this story where you get out clean." The call ended. Amanda stood in her kitchen holding her phone and feeling the temperature in the room drop about 10 degrees. That voice. That was not rage. That was warning. There was a difference, and Amanda, who had grown up listening carefully to the difference between those two things, felt it in her spine. Eugene arrived at 8. He was wearing a gray coat and he looked tired in a way she could see at the bone level, and she almost lost her nerve. But she had the drawing on her counter. She had 2 threatening messages on her phone. She had spent the night without sleeping. And she had a grandmother's voice in her head that said, "Baby, you cannot love somebody into safety." "Sit down," she said. He sat. She stood because she needed to stand. She needed her legs under her. "I'm ending this," she said. "Not because I don't feel what I feel. I'm not going to pretend I don't feel it. But your world is too dangerous for me, Eugene. A bullet casing. Threatening messages from women I've never met. A little girl who is already calling me mom before I've even had a chance to decide anything. That's not a relationship. That's a situation. And I cannot be someone's situation." He was quiet for a long time. Long enough that she thought he might fight her on it. Long enough that she started bracing for the argument. Instead he said, "You're right." She blinked. "You're right," he said again. "I should have told you about Sujin. I should have been honest about every part of what my life is from the beginning. I kept things from you because I didn't want to lose you. And in doing that, I made the decision for you instead of letting you make it for yourself. That's not love. That's control. And I know what control costs a person. He stood. He straightened his coat. He looked at her with that dark, careful gaze that she had spent 8 months learning to read, and what she saw in it now was not anger. It was not manipulation. It was grief. Clean, honest grief. I won't ask you to stay, he said. He walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the frame and he said, without turning around, for what it's worth, she talks about you constantly. She decided you were going to be her person before she ever met you. I don't know how she knew. She just did. He left. Amanda stood in her kitchen alone and told herself this was the right thing. This was the only sensible thing. She repeated it 4 times. She was working on the 5th when she heard it. A sound from the street below. Sure. Multiple. Unmistakable. Gunshots. She was at the window before she processed that she had moved. Down on the street, a dark car was already accelerating away, taillights bleeding red into the night. And on the pavement, about 30 meters from her building's entrance, was a figure in a gray coat. Not moving. She was out of her apartment and down the stairs before she even put shoes on. But wait, because here is where it gets absolutely crazy. She hit the street and ran. The pavement was cold under her bare feet and she didn't feel it. She reached him and dropped to her knees and his name came out of her mouth in a way she had never said it before. Not careful. Not controlled. Bro. Eugene. He was conscious. Barely. There was blood on the left side of his shirt, spreading dark against the gray coat, and his hand was pressed against it with the automatic instinct of someone who had been trained for exactly this possibility. His other hand on instinct found her wrist. Told you, he breathed. Too dangerous. Don't you dare, she said. Don't you dare make this a lesson right now. She was already calling for help. Kezia, who lived 2 floors above her, appeared in the doorway of the building within seconds. She had heard the shots, she had her phone in her hand, she was already talking to emergency services in the efficient, rapid way that Kezia handled crises, which was with complete competence and absolutely no calmness whatsoever. They're coming, Kezia called. Amanda, keep pressure on it. Amanda pressed both hands over his. The coat was ruined. She did not care about the coat. Look at me, she said to him. Keep your eyes open and look at me. He looked at her. Even now, with blood on the pavement and his breathing shallow, the way he looked at her was specific. Concentrated. Like she was the only fixed point in a room that was spinning. Sujin, he said. She's fine. She's at the mansion. My men are with her. Then she's safe. You're the one who needs to focus. I'm focused, he said, and almost managed to make it sound like the truth. The ambulance arrived. His security team arrived 30 seconds before it did. 4 men in dark clothing materializing out of the Seoul night like they had been stationed there the whole time, which she realized later they probably had been. One of them, a broad-shouldered man named Do-hyun who had been Eugen's right hand for years and who had always treated Amanda with the specific courtesy of someone who genuinely liked her, crouched beside her and said quietly, "We've got him. Thank you." She rode in the ambulance because nobody stopped her and she didn't give them the opportunity. She held his hand the entire ride and he held back, which told her he was still there, still present, still Eugene, even bleeding onto a stretcher. The paramedic spoke in fast Korean around her and she understood enough to know that the wound was serious but not catastrophic. That the bullet had missed the critical things by margins that were either luck or something more. She chose to call it more. She needed to call it more. At the hospital, in a waiting room that smelled like antiseptic and anxiety, Kezia sat beside her and did not say "I told you so," which was an act of profound friendship, because Kezia had technically told her so approximately 9 times over the past 8 months. He said your world is too dangerous, Kezia said instead after a long quiet. Don't. I'm not. I'm just noting that the man left your apartment agreeing with your breakup, and then got shot in the street outside your building. Kezia. I'm just saying. That's a lot of evidence to process. Amanda pressed her palms against her eyes. The butterfly drawing was still in her coat pocket. She could feel the folded edge of it against her ribs. She thought about how he had said Sujin's name with his last conscious breath. Not a question. Not a command. Just a name. The way you say the name of something you are afraid of losing. She understood that feeling precisely. When they finally let her see him, he was pale against the white hospital sheets and there were tubes and monitors and the whole clinical machinery of survival doing its work around him. His sister was already there, Hannah, who Amanda had met exactly twice and both times in situations where Hannah had looked at her with an expression that said she was yet to be convinced. Hannah looked at Amanda in the doorway and said in Korean that Amanda understood perfectly because she had been studying for 2 years, "You shouldn't be here." She found him, Do-hyun said from the chair in the corner. Hannah looked at her again. Something in her expression shifted, but did not fully open. He's stable, Hannah said in English now. The bullet missed anything critical. He will recover. Amanda exhaled something that had been sitting in her lungs for 2 hours. She sat in the chair farthest from the bed, because she understood that she did not yet have the right to sit close, and she stayed until the sun started coming through the hospital window and Eugen's chest was rising and falling in a steady, reliable rhythm that made her feel like the world had been returned to a manageable size. Then Hannah said without preamble, "Jiyeon is gone." Amanda looked up. What? She came back for Soo-jin last night. The men at the mansion said she arrived an hour after you left for the hospital. She took the child. They assumed she had clearance. Hannah's voice was controlled, but her hands, Amanda noticed, were pressed flat against her thighs. By the time we understood what had happened, they were already gone. The room felt very still. Gone where? Amanda asked. We don't know yet. Amanda looked at Eugen's sleeping face. She thought about Soo-jin's uneven pigtails and her butterfly drawing and her very certain declaration about Amanda being prettier than her pictures. She thought about Jiyeon's voice on the phone. Get out before it's too late. That voice, Amanda realized now, had not been threatening her. It had been warning her. There was a difference. She had felt it in her spine even then. Something was very wrong with Jiyeon's situation. And she was starting to understand that Jiyeon had not taken Soo-jin to protect herself from Amanda. She had taken her because something had forced her to. Now here is where the story turns completely on its head. Because what they were about to find out about Jiyeon, nobody in that room was prepared for it. Eugen woke up 8 hours later. Amanda was still there. She told herself it was because someone needed to be there when he regained consciousness and Hannah had left to manage the situation and Do-hyun had stepped out to make calls. She did not examine that reasoning too closely. The first thing he said when he opened his eyes was her name. The second thing he said was Soo-jin's. She told him what Hannah had told her. She watched the information move across his face. He did not panic. This was not a man built for panic, but something in his jaw set with an absolute quiet intensity that was somehow more frightening than panic would have been. She didn't leave on her own, he said. I don't think so either. She called you? Amanda nodded. She told me to get out. She chose her word carefully, cornered. Eugen closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, the decision was already made. She could see it. I have to get Soo-jin back, he said. I know. This will be dangerous. I know that too. He looked at her. Amanda? Don't, she said. Don't tell me to go home. We are past that. He was quiet. Then, so quietly she almost missed it, thank you for staying on the pavement with me. Don't make it a thing, she said, which was what she said when she was trying not to cry in front of someone. Do-hyun and Hannah returned within the hour with information. It came quickly once they started pulling on the right threads, and what unraveled was not what any of them expected. Jiyeon had not fled out of fear for herself. She had been contacted 3 days before Amanda's first visit to the mansion, 3 days before Soo-jin called a stranger mom on a doorstep, by representatives of the Shin family. The Shins were a rival family older than Eugen's operation, with roots in the kind of organized crime that predated the modern world and had survived every attempt to dismantle it by simply absorbing the people who tried. The Shins had made Jiyeon an offer she could not refuse. Bring the child to us, or we come and take her ourselves. Jiyeon had refused. She had called Eugen's men instead, but the message had been intercepted. She had tried to warn Eugen, but the call had been blocked. She had finally done the only thing left to do. She had called Amanda, the woman she had been told was Eugen's weakness, and tried to warn her in the only way that wouldn't get her killed immediately. Then she had been forced to go to the Shins with Soo-jin because they were watching her and she had run out of moves. They're not going to hurt Soo-jin, Do-hyun said. She's leverage. They want something from Eugen. What? Hannah asked. Do-hyun looked at Amanda. Amanda felt the shift in the room before he spoke. Not from him, Do-hyun said. From her. Everyone looked at Amanda. Me, she said. Your previous work, Do-hyun said. Before Seoul. You were a trade compliance consultant. You worked on a specific contract for a shipping consortium in 2021. The Shins have been trying to get the documentation from that contract for 2 years. It's connected to routes they can't access without it. They believe you either have copies or know where the originals are. Amanda's mind went back, fast and precise. The 2021 Meridian contract. She had not thought about that file in 18 months. She had flagged irregularities internally, the contract had been quietly dissolved, and she had been told by 3 separate people that it was no longer her concern. She had kept copies. Because she was not a fool, And people who flag irregularities without keeping copies often find themselves without proof when things go sideways. I have the files, she said. The room was completely silent. I have them on a drive at my apartment, she said. I kept them because I was protecting myself. I didn't know they were valuable to anyone outside the company. Hannah was staring at her. You are the reason they went after Sujin. The words landed like something physical. Hannah, Eugene said, his voice low with warning. She needs to understand. She understands, he said. She also just told us exactly how we get Sujin back. The plan came together in the strange, accelerated way that plans do when everyone in the room is operating from the same urgency. Amanda would bring the drive. Eugene would arrange the exchange in a location his team could control. Do-hyun would manage the extraction. Hannah, reluctantly, would coordinate from outside. Telling it now. And Hannah had looked at Amanda and given her the smallest, sharpest nod, which was, Amanda understood, an olive branch from someone who did not grow them easily. Amanda would take it. She went back to her apartment with two of Eugene's men flanking her at a distance. She found the drive in her desk drawer in a small orange case, exactly where she had left it 18 months ago when she decided to not think about the Meridian contract anymore. She sat on the edge of her bed and held it and thought about how life was not a straight line. It was a series of decisions that looked unrelated at the time and then, one day, revealed themselves to be connected in ways that took your breath away. She had kept this drive to protect herself. She was going to use it to bring back a little girl in bare pajamas who had decided, with 5-year-old certainty, that Amanda was going to be her person. She put the drive in her coat pocket, next to the butterfly drawing. She went back to the hospital. I'm coming with you for the exchange, she told Eugene. No, he said. Yes, she said. Amanda. Eugene. They asked for me specifically. You know as well as I do that if I'm not there, they won't hand over Sujin. They'll know something is wrong. I'm not a liability. I'm the strategy. He looked at her for a long time. You don't do anything without telling me first, he said. Agreed. You stay where I can see you. Agreed. And after this, he said, we talk. Properly. About everything. She met his gaze. Agreed. This is the part where you really need to be locked in. If you're not subscribed yet, do it right now. This story is heading straight into the most intense scene yet, and you do not want to miss a single second of what comes next. The exchange was set for midnight, in an industrial district on the eastern edge of Seoul where the buildings were large and dark and sound didn't carry. Eugene's team arrived 2 hours early and did the things that Eugene's team did in the dark, efficiently and without discussion. Amanda did not ask about the details. She understood enough to know that understanding more would not help her stay calm. She stood with Do-hyun near the vehicle while the last preparations were made. Do-hyun was the kind of person who said very little and communicated everything through proximity, and the fact that he positioned himself exactly one step to her left for the entire preparation period told her he was not going to let anything happen to her. How long have you worked for him? She asked. 11 years, Do-hyun said. You love him like a brother. Pause. He is my brother. Not by blood, but by every other definition. Amanda understood that. She had Kezia who was the same thing. He's been different, Do-hyun said, and she looked at him because this was more words than she had heard from him at one time. Since you. He seemed to search for the word. Present. He used to be always somewhere else in his head. Planning. Calculating. He's still like that. But now there are moments where he is just here. Just in the room. That's you. Amanda looked at the dark buildings across from them and did not say anything because what was there to say to that? She thought about the first time she had ever seen him at a trade networking event she had almost skipped. He had been standing at the edge of the room the way powerful people do when they do not need to be at the center of it, and he had looked across the room and found her looking at him and he had not looked away, which was the thing that had undone her first. Not his face. Not the suit. The fact that he did not look away. She had been looking away from things her whole life. She did not know why she stayed this time. She was starting to understand. The Shins arrived exactly on time, which told her they were professionals. 3 black vehicles. 6 men visible, which meant more not visible. And in the middle of them, held by the hand by a woman who looked exhausted in a way that went beyond physical, was Sujin. Amanda's chest did something complicated and sharp. Jiyeon looked up and found Amanda across the distance between them. Even from here Amanda could read the expression. Relief. Guilt. The specific gratitude of someone who had been trying to send a message with the tools available and had not known if it arrived. The man who stepped forward from the Shin side was 50s, controlled, wearing a coat that cost more than reasonable. He looked at Amanda. You brought it, he said. I brought it, Amanda said. Let me see. Let me see her first. The man considered this. Then he nodded to Jiyeon who walked Sujin forward 3 steps. Sujin looked across the space between them and her face broke open with pure, uncomplicated relief. "Mom," she called, and she said it the same way she had said it on the doorstep, with that total certainty, and this time it hit Amanda somewhere deeper than confusion. This time it hit somewhere that felt true. "I see her," Amanda said to the Shin man. "Your turn." She held up the drive. Everything happened in the next 45 seconds. Yujin's team moved. The Shins, whose attention had been on the drive and on Amanda, found themselves rearranged before they had processed the movement. It was professional and controlled and nobody fired a shot, which Amanda understood was intentional. Eugene had told his people to keep it clean because Sujin was in the space between. Sujin ran. She crossed the distance between them and hit Amanda at full speed, arms out, and Amanda caught her and went down on one knee with the impact and held on, and the child smelled like fierce sweat and shampoo and was shaking slightly, and Amanda pressed her lips against the top of her head and said, "I've got you. I've got you. You're okay." "I knew you'd come," Sujin said into her neck, with the faith of someone who had never had a reason to doubt it. Amanda held on tighter. She thought, in that moment, that she understood something about herself she had not understood before. She had been afraid of this exact feeling, of something this small and this certain mattering this much to her. She had been keeping a careful distance from things that could not be returned. She had mistaken that distance for strength. It was not strength. It was armor. And armor was very heavy and she was tired of being heavy. She held Sujin and decided to put it down. "I knew you'd come," Sujin said again, pulling back just enough to look at her face, checking it the way children check the faces of people they love for evidence of everything being all right. "I will always come," Amanda said, and meant it with every part of herself. "Promise." "Promise." Sujin nodded with the solemn gravity of a 5-year-old accepting a contract, then put her head back down against Amanda's shoulder like business was concluded. Amanda held on. Across the space, she heard Eugen's voice, controlled and final, telling the Shin family representative exactly what would happen if this kind of move was made again. She did not know all the details of what was promised. She knew from the silence that followed that it was believed. Jiyeon was free. She stood at the edge of the action looking like someone who had been holding themselves together by will alone for days, and when her eyes met Amanda's she said, in a voice barely above a whisper, "Thank you." Amanda nodded. Eugene arrived at her side and went down on his knee beside her, ignoring every physical protest his healing body must have been making, and he put his arms around both of them, his daughter and the woman he loved, and the three of them stayed like that for a moment in the middle of an industrial district at midnight in Seoul, and it was one of the least romantic settings imaginable and somehow one of the most honest things Amanda had ever been part of. But wait, because Hannah had been coordinating from outside, and what she found during the coordination would change everything they thought they knew about this family. 3 days later, the world was calmer. Eugene was recovering at the mansion. Sujin was back in her bear pajamas, staging elaborate tea parties in the living room with a stuffed bear named Gongju and treating the recovery of her family unit as a personal victory, which it was. Jiyeon had been taken to a location Eugene's team knew was safe, to rest and be looked after and decide, without pressure, what she wanted her life to look like from here. Amanda had not gone home. She told herself it was because Sujin needed consistency right now. Because transitions were hard for children. Because it would be unkind to appear and disappear in quick succession when the child had already had enough uncertainty. She did not tell herself the other reason, which was that she did not want to leave. On the 3rd day, Hannah appeared at the mansion. Amanda was in the kitchen making tea when Hannah walked in alone. She sat at the kitchen island and looked at Amanda with an expression that had lost most of its sharpness. Not because Hannah had decided to like her, but because Amanda sensed Hannah had decided to be honest, and honesty sometimes softens a face. "Sit down," Hannah said. Amanda sat. "I have something to tell you," Hannah said. "And I need you to understand that I am telling you because you have earned the right to know. Not because I decided you were acceptable. Because you went to that exchange and you caught my niece when she ran to you and you did not hesitate. That told me more about who you are than anything my brother said." She paused, and Amanda watched something work itself out behind the woman's eyes. Hannah was precise in the way that people are precise when they have learned, possibly the hard way, that imprecision costs you. "I was not kind to you," Hannah said. "At the hospital. When you came. You were protective," Amanda said. "I was unkind," Hannah said firmly, because she was not a woman who accepted comfortable reframings of her own behavior. "And I was wrong. Not about being protective. About you." Amanda nodded once. That was enough. Neither of them were built for extended apologies, which meant they understood each other perfectly. Amanda waited. During the investigation, Hannah said, "When we were tracking the Shins, we pulled certain records. The Shins people had done their own research on Sujin. They wanted to understand the leverage. She placed a folder on the island between them. The DNA results, she said, are inside. Amanda looked at the folder. She did not open it. They ran a paternity test without our knowledge, Hannah said. As part of their leverage assessment, trying to understand how much Eugene would pay to get her back. They believed, correctly, that if the child was not biologically his, it changed the calculus. Amanda understood what was coming before Hannah said it. Sujin is not his biological daughter, Hannah said. The kitchen was very quiet. He doesn't know yet, Hannah said. I found out 2 hours ago. I came here to tell him. But I'm telling you first because I need to know who you are before I watch how this breaks. Amanda looked at the folder. She thought about Sujin staging tea parties in the living room with Gongju. She thought about uneven pigtails tied by a man trying his best. She thought about a little girl who had looked at a photograph and decided, with total conviction, that the woman in it was going to be her person. She thought about what Eugene had said on the hospital steps. He accepted the situation. He made choices. He showed up. It won't break anything, Amanda said. Hannah looked at her carefully. He chose her, Amanda said. Before he knew any of this, he chose her. Blood doesn't make a parent. I know that better than most. The woman who raised me was my grandmother, not my mother. She chose me every single morning. That's what made her my family. Hannah was quiet for a moment. Something moved across her face that was not quite warmth but was adjacent to it. He's going to need to hear it from you, Hannah said. He'll hear it from me, Amanda said. She stood up. She carried the folder down the hall to the room where Eugene was resting. She knocked. She went in. She sat in the chair beside him and she put the folder on her lap. Hannah found something, she said. And before I give it to you, I need to tell you something first. He waited. Whatever is in this folder, she said, doesn't change what I watched you do for that little girl. The pigtails. The cooking. The photograph you showed her for months so she would recognize me when she saw me because you were already hoping. Eugene, whatever this says biologically, you are her father. And I need you to know that before you read it. He looked at her. She gave him the folder. She watched him read it. She watched his face go through the information. She watched him absorb it and set it down and look at the ceiling for a long, quiet moment. Then he said, she called you Mom before she ever called you anything else. She did. On the doorstep. Before you even said a word. Yes. She knew, he said. She just knew. Amanda looked at him. She's been right about everything so far. He looked at her. Something in him, the last thing that had been held tight, released. He exhaled it like a weight he had been carrying without knowing it. Stay, he said. Not a request. Not a demand. A word with the whole truth of him behind it. She looked at the butterfly drawing in her coat pocket, still folded, a little worn at the edges from all the time she had reached in to touch it without realizing. 3 figures under the butterflies. A tall one. A shorter one. A small one holding both their hands. She thought about her grandmother's voice. Family is not about blood, baby. Family is about who shows up. I'm staying, she said. From down the hall, Sujin's voice. Appa. Gongju says it's your turn for the tea party. You said you would come. Eugene looked at Amanda. The corner of his mouth lifted in the specific rare way it lifted when he was genuinely undone by something and had stopped pretending otherwise. The bear has spoken, Amanda said. He laughed. Actually laughed, which was a sound she decided in that moment was one of her favorite sounds in the world. He stood, still slower than usual but standing, and she stood with him and they walked down the hall together. But that is not where the story ends. Because 2 weeks later, on a quiet Thursday morning, Do-hyun arrived at the mansion with a look on his face that Amanda had learned to read. Not danger. Not urgency. Grief. He asked to speak to Eugene alone, and Amanda respected that and took Sujin to the garden, and they sat together on the steps in the autumn soul air while Sujin narrated what Gongju was thinking about the sky. Inside, Eugene received the news. Jiyeon had passed away. Not from anything violent. Not from anything the Shins had done. Her heart, which had apparently been quietly failing for over a year, which was something she had known and had told no one, had given out in her sleep at the safe house. She had looked, the woman who found her said, entirely at peace. Like she had put everything down and rested. Amanda thought about the voice on the phone. That low, tightly controlled voice that had said get out before it's too late. She thought about how Jiyeon had known even then that she was running out of time in more ways than one. A woman who had been carrying a failing heart and a threatened child and a terrible secret, and had still found the presence of mind to warn a stranger she had every reason to resent. There was something in that, something Amanda was going to spend a long time thinking about. The grace of people in impossible situations. The way love sometimes expressed itself not as staying but as making sure someone else can. There was a letter. Written to Eugene and to Sujin and, One separate sealed envelope, to Amanda. Amanda opened her letter in the garden, with Sujin chasing something near the flowers and the Seoul sky enormous overhead. The letter was short. It said, I chose wrong, then I chose late, then I chose at least once correctly when it mattered. She is not his by blood. She is his by everything else. And she is yours too if you decide to stay. She already decided. She decided the moment she saw your picture. Children know things we forget how to know. Take care of my girl. J. Amanda folded the letter. She pressed her hand flat against it the way you press something you want to keep inside you. Sujin ran back from the flowers and climbed onto the step beside her and leaned against her arm with the comfortable, boneless weight of a child who has found a place they plan to stay. What's that? Sujin asked. A letter from someone who loved you very much, Amanda said. Sujin considered this. Like you. Amanda looked at her. The sun was doing something beautiful with the Seoul autumn. The garden smelled like the end of something and the beginning of something else. Yes, Amanda said. Like me. Sujin nodded as though this confirmed a theory she had been developing for some time. She put her head back against Amanda's arm. She started telling Gongju, who was tucked under her elbow, about the flowers she had found, the specific colors of them, the way the light was working. From inside, the sound of a door. Footsteps in the hall. Then Eugene in the garden doorway, his eyes red at the edges in a way he was not trying to hide, which told Amanda everything about how far they had come, because this was a man who once would have hidden that in a room alone. He had told her once, early in their relationship, that he had learned to treat grief like a business problem. You assessed it, you managed it, you moved past it. She had said that sounded exhausting. He had looked at her like she had said something in a language he was still learning. He was learning. She looked at him. He looked at her. He crossed the garden and sat on the steps beside Sujin on the other side, so the child was between them, and Sujin immediately transferred her narration to include her father in it, explaining the flowers, explaining Gongju's opinions, explaining the color of the sky with the authority of someone who has spent significant time studying it. Eugene listened to every word with his full attention, the way he had always listened, that quality of being completely present that had drawn Amanda to him before she even understood what it was. He caught her eye over Sujin's head. He did not say anything. He did not have to. Some things you say with silence. Some things you say by simply staying. And the three of them sat together in the garden in the Seoul autumn, with a letter in Amanda's pocket and a butterfly drawing folded beside it, and the grief of a woman who had finally, at the very end, made the right choice, sitting somewhere over all of them like something that was both sad and merciful. The Seoul air was doing what Seoul air does in autumn, that particular crisp that sits at the edge of cold without committing to it, that smells like the city exhaling after a long summer. Sujin had found a leaf, orange and perfectly shaped, and was presenting it to Gongju as a gift. She narrated the presentation with solemnity. Gongju apparently was moved. This was not the family any of them had planned. But plans, Amanda had learned, were what you made when you thought you knew what was coming. Family was what happened when you stopped knowing and started staying. She reached past Sujin and took Eugen's hand. His fingers closed around hers immediately, without hesitation, the way they had on the pavement when he was bleeding and she was afraid. Like her hand was the fixed point. Sujin looked at their joined hands and looked at the sky and announced to Gongju that she had been right all along. She had been. If this story moved you, hit that like button right now. Leave a comment and tell us which moment got you. Was it the butterfly drawing, the doorstep, or the letter at the end? And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Every week we bring you stories like this one, full of love, danger, grief, and the people who choose to stay anyway. Click subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.